everybody, and welcome back to the nikkitattoox podcast. Today we're continuing one of my two long-running sub-series, one of my favorites indeed, the Beyond the Gate sub-series, where I talk to people from marginalized backgrounds who also work in the tattoo industry. And I couldn't ask a better guest to continue this with, as I've long been wanting to expand out and get more different cultural backgrounds into this series. And today we're talking to South Asian, I hope it's the correct terminology, else Nikki will correct me in a bit. I already gave the cat out of the way there. But a South Asian tattooer, and we're talking about how both the culture mixes into certain tattoo trends nowadays, but also about her experience being a South Asian artist in the tattoo industry today in Britain. To be honest, this will be from the UK perspective. I don't think she's been working much in the US, at least at this point. But we'll see. We'll figure it out together. But yeah, before I ramble on any further or slaughter her credentials, Nikki, will you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name's Nikki, and yes, I'm a UK-based tattoo artist. Always been based predominantly in London. Grew up in London, did all my training in London, but since have ventured out into other areas of the country with tattooing, but sadly have not yet made it out of the country tattooing, which is on the list. I would love to head abroad, tattoo out there, but yeah, UK based for now. I've been tattooing for 7 years, or in the industry for 7 years. 2 of the years were training, and 5, give or take, actual professional tattooing. I started when I was 19 and couldn't think of doing anything else, to be honest.
Very much fell in love with it. I mean, that's also the impression I got reading a little bit about your story from our mutual friends work with you, Cameron, who, if nobody knows, he's a great photographer from Edinburgh in Scotland, who's done an amazing book lately where Nikki is also featured, which is a surprise, where I actually found Nikki, even though I've actually figured out since I've been to the same year, I've been right next to her booth once at Brighton Tattoo Convention, I think, actually, without knowing at that time I was going to interview her.
Oh, amazing.
Which is quite funny. I thought about that right before the interview, actually, or before we talked briefly before the interview, as always with my guest. But but I was there in the same year you were once.
Which one?
I have to remember now, my brain is getting so fuzzy. Year before last. What was that? Oh yeah, 2023 I was there last. And I think you were there as well that one.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It was seeing the pink banner in one of your posts. I was like, oh, definitely seeing that pink banner at Brighton's Tattoo Convention.
Yeah, that classic pink banner has been to every convention with me.
I mean, it's a great banner as well. Thanks. And it also very neatly shows off part of what your style is about. But I want to, before we get into that, because I do want to get into that, I want to ask you the question I always ask people, because I can't help it. How did you get into tattooing? And tattoos, respectively, like separate things, as you know, as a tattoo artist. One can very much be into tattoos and not be into tattooing. But let's start with, how did you get into tattoos?
So my mum was a Mehndi artist, and Mehndi is henna, like the henna paste that you put on hands and feet for brides before a wedding, traditionally. But people also get it done at parties and stuff like that. So she trained to be a Mehndi artist for brides. And she did hair, makeup, Mehndi, everything. So she was always practicing with her Mehndi cones on me and on A4 bits of paper, stuff like that, on herself. And my mum was very artistic growing up as well. So, it was just having the Mehndi on me constantly that I just became so obsessed.
Well, let's make it permanent.
Pretty much, yeah. I just became obsessed with body art.
Oh, really?
Body art, and I think self-expression, and just having that little piece of artwork that you could carry around with you all day, and I just really fell in love with it. So that's where I decided I wanted tattoos.
I almost saw like a conservative headline, like if in India coming up with like Mehndi gateway to tattooing for kids.
pretty much is.
Which I don't think is a negative thing, but I could just vividly see like coming up with like, don't Mehndi your kids. Let's get to do.
It really is the gateway. So all these people, Indian people that hate tattoos, they should really reconsider Mehndi.
But it is. But to be honest, it makes a lot of sense to me as a sociologist that would be sort of lead you into thinking a lot about body art, because that does seem. Now, I'll happily admit I don't know much about South Asian culture. No, I mean I've seen the art documentary about Indian, which I've read the art, like research papers about cultural identity and embodiment in South Asia. But I would by no means expert on anything. But it does seem very prevalent in South Asia and Southeast Asia, body art, and always has been. So it seems very logical that Mehndi would also lead you to think about,
Yeah, definitely. I think
is there other forms of body art that might be interesting?
In South Asian culture, it's very, very decorative. Like, even if you look at the outfits and the saris and stuff like that, there's always so much like adornment and so much like creativity in the way that it's all put together and the designs. So it's
absolutely.
It's so natural that from South Asian cultures it's really art heavily influenced. So I feel like all the Mehndi and the tattoos, it all just goes hand in hand. Like if you go to an Indian wedding, all of the plates are so vibrant and the decorations and the outfits and the Mehndi on the hands and feet, like it's so rich and vibrant as a culture that it really just makes so much sense with the whole adornment of bodies and self-expression using art, because art is a way that people express a little tidbit of their personality to the outside world without having to open their mouths, essentially.
Well, not even, I would say that this is actually where my expertise comes in. Not even just to the outside world, but often, even though it seems strange for people that haven't considered this, but it's also communicating it in a way to yourself. You sort of anchor this, as Paul Sweetman, one of my favorites, would have said, thing about your own identity or your cultural background or the way you see the world into your skin. You sort of make it permanent there, and it starts having another kind of influence on how you see yourself as well and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think tattoos can provide that sense of confidence and personality. Like, this is me.
But I think it exactly comes from. I'm gonna name drop so many people now. I'm so sorry. I swear, Nikki actually was very into how many academics I know before we started this interview. I'm not pestering. But another great guy I know from, I think he's in the University of Wolverhampton, called Michael Rees. He wrote a whole book about identity and authenticity with tattoos. And I think that's exactly why we gain a sense of confidence, because we also gain, for us that think about it more reflexively and personally for ourselves. Sorry to people that get trendy fashion tattoos, that it's not exactly the same there. Sorry. But when people get tattoos very personally motivated, it often also leads to a greater sense of an authentic self. Whether that self is based in one's cultural background or in something completely separate and much more individual, it still leads to the sense of a greater... It still leads to a sense of... Man, I'm butchering my English today. It still leads to a greater sense of an authentic self.
Yeah.
Despite where the root comes from, so to speak, can be different from person to person, and it can also be very mixed. There's nobody needs to necessarily just be like Nikki. I would imagine you only have South Asian tattoos. You also have other stuff mixed in it. Yeah, great example. One can absolutely be a spectrum of different things that influences from both one's personal life, cultural background, social life, everything. And tattoos are great for that, and also mixing that.
Definitely. And I think it's interesting as well how you rightly so pointed out people that are just sort of getting the fashion style tattoos, especially that's very prominent now, I would say, in 2024, 2025 sort of thing. Because, people are just, it's not so much their personality anymore. We've sadly moved away from the artwork and the personality side of tattooing. It's now just... I saw this on a celebrity and I'm going to get that kind of thing.
I mean, there's always been some of that, but it is at times more prevalent than other times,
I think sadly we're in that time now, but I think is cyclical, like fashion. Fashion trends come and go. So I hope one day, and I very much look forward to the day that we're back into the artwork, personality
I would say,
side.
I don't think that ever goes away. I'm gonna be a little critical now as a sociologist. I think because there's voices to both sides. I've noticed. Some people are like, no, everybody's regretting their fashioning now, and yet others are within the industry are saying, no, people only want that now. So, there's these. But the thing I'm noticing is that rather than cyclical, I would say more of a spiral in a way. We do move slowly away and towards certain things. There is some progress, but it is cyclical in the way that some things will pop up a little bit. Now and then still. So I would say it's a different kind of fashioning than what we saw when we were younger. I actually think you're a fair bit younger than me, so I need to be careful here. But when I was way younger, in the early 2000s, you saw way more of like consistent, like these things are fashioning now. Now there's more of a consistent nature of people feeling, oh, this is trendy within either the subculture or whatever they listen to or whatever celebrities they follow. So I'm going to get that, But before it was like, no, fashion says you need a clock or you need these stars there or the bird star, all those classical like millennial shit,
Yeah.
Now it seems more amorphous in that sense, but it still definitely there's a lot of people that, whether it's from their own social group or norms in society at large or fashion trends and so on, that they do go out, especially with the influence of TikTok, and just go like, oh, for example, now men, which is a thing I wanted to talk to you about as well, because that must be conflicting, especially with your cultural background. Mehndi is becoming so trendy right now. So imagine there are rows of people that want it for the wrong reasons at the moment.
Yeah.
Which must be difficult to deal with at some point. But to my point, it's sort of like, oh, now that's the trend. And then so trends have never been more fleeting and fast changing than now. So very quickly people are like, oh shit, people now find my Mehndi hand tattoo trashy, so now I can't have it. Whereas if they'd gotten it for personal reasons, they wouldn't give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
She's like, I love this tattoo. Fuck if you don't like it.
Yeah. If there's some root to your personality as to why you're getting the tattoos, then obviously that really
absolutely
helps.
It's very much gives an insight into that, because if you're willing to change your body permanently despite the fleeting nature of fashion to fit into a fleeting fashion trend, I'm sorry to say, you're not thinking it through.
Very true.
Which is, but the thing is, do you see Mehndi being way more trendy now? Because I mean, I've noticed it even before I started talking to you and wanted to interview you. I sort of noticed that it pops out a lot nowadays, like South Asian inspired tattoo styles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the industry 7 years, and I feel that that's a short amount of time still.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm just checking my connection. Yeah. So I still feel that's a short amount of time. So I think it was growing before then, but maybe a bit slowly. And then the more that ladies especially started to get it, and tattoos in general became a little bit more accepted, and in the workplace, in society, it's definitely now exponentially like grown and snowballed. So I feel like it was growing and growing maybe for the past 10, 12, potentially even 15 years. But in the last possibly 5, it's like, or maybe, maybe a bit longer, in the past 10 years, maybe, it's really like honed in.
No, I think you're right. Like I remember distinctly being able to be like, oh yeah, this is not mandala, this is something different. Like you said, they came up, sort of overtook the popularity of mandala tattoos, and now people are really into South Asian like Mehndi tattoo styles.
Yeah, because I think as well, like say 15 years ago, there was probably more male tattoo artists as well, rather than female. So the way that a guy would draw a very dainty, delicate wrist piece would be very different to a way that a woman would draw it, and that's just some people might think that that's incorrect, but I've seen it myself, So I think before, when there was more male tattoo artists, the mandala tattoos and the geometric tattoos were a bit more maybe bolder and harsher.
Yeah.
So women maybe didn't lean more towards that, and they kind of thought, no, that's still not my cup of tea. And then obviously the increasing amount of female tattoo artists and women that just have a bit more of like a delicate touch
Yeah.
in designing and in tattooing has really increased the amount of women that want to say, actually, I can see that on my arm on show forever because it feels very delicate. So I think it's a increasing number of female tattoo artists, and then the more that society has accepted tattooing as well. It's not just a man's thing.
No, true, but I think in the UK specifically, because of, I mean, to be very blunt, colonial influence and how a lot of people from South Asia were basically almost forced into the British, into the UK, and have become if you ask me as a sociologist, a cornerstone of modern British society. To be honest, and quite a big part of British modern culture is South Asian influenced. So it seems very logical that it would especially be popular there.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah, the UK is such a diverse country.
Absolutely.
And however that came about, it is what it is. But
I mean, the history is rough. Let's say that.
yeah, it's very rough. It is. And, as much as the history is very violent and very rough and causes a lot of upset, even in today, it's got us here. It's allowed us all to become diverse, and hopefully as the more older generations keep moving on out, it will become more...
Nice way of saying it.
Yeah. It will, everything will settle, and we all do live harmoniously together. It's just we still get...
I'd say that. I mean, that was at least my experience. Especially the first time when I lived in England. I've lived in Scotland since, and Scotland's even more so, if you ask me. We're very diverse. There's some of the most open-minded people. I'll defend that till the fucking day I die, to be honest. But when I lived in south of England, in Portsmouth back in the day, I remember that was the first time I saw that level of diversity.
Yeah.
Even though Denmark at the time wasn't undiverse, we were better at diversity back then than we are now. But it was still, for me, I'd never met many South Asian people, for example. That was my first time meeting a lot of them, a lot of more people from different parts of Africa and Asia and all that stuff. It was great. I mean, at least to me, I've always loved that sort of stuff.
The UK really has good pockets of,
absolutely,
these communities and stuff, and I think it's great. I mean, I personally have never experienced too much racism, which I'm very lucky, I feel.
I mean, you do hear some horror stories from people of different Asian cultures and basically, sorry, I hope this is not the word, sorry, people of brown ethnicities that have quite some trouble in the tattoo industry.
Yeah. You definitely do hear a lot about it. I feel like that there's subtle undertones, but there always is going to be, sadly. I don't think, sadly,
at least for the foreseeable future, I think you're very much correct.
Yeah, I think as a whole planet, we're not yet at that level of you're human, I'm human, that's that, There's still undertones everywhere. I mean, one that always sticks out to me, I was out at a concert with two friends of mine who are both tattoo artists as well, but they are just white British, and they're very heavily tattooed, sort of all arms done. I am as well.
Yeah, because you don't have many.
Well, yeah, all three of us heavily tattooed, I guess. And this girl turned around to them and she said, "Oh, I really like your tattoos," to both of them. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, thank you." And then she looked at me and she said, "Are yours henna?" And I'm like,
what the fuck?
It like really caught me off guard, and because it was such a subtle undertone.
It's quite the assumption. I mean,
yeah, I'm not saying it was racism at all.
No, it's not. I don't think it was intended that way, but it's just, it shows the level of ignorance still that they would quickly assume that, like, oh, she seems South Asian, it must be henna.
She's she can't possibly have.
I don't think there's malice in it at all. It's still really just a funny, like,
yeah. It caught me off guard, and I just thought, like, how we're in 2025. How have we sort of not moved on from the fact that Indian people can have tattoos?
That is interesting to me because that is, I will happily admit, a place where my knowledge may be a bit lacking. I don't know many of the trends within South Asian communities, so but I do know I've met plenty of all of these thinkable ethnicities with tattoos in my life, throughout my life. But is there more stigma still? I mean, within South Asian communities with younger people getting tattoos?
I feel like there's not so much a stigma anymore. I think the more younger clients that I'm having, they're sort of saying their parents are, becoming more open to it, and it's not so much seen as like an uneducated
no
thing anymore. That's my dog. I'm very sorry. Ollie, stop. Yeah, I don't think it's actually seen as you have tattoos and therefore you're uneducated, you're part of a culture that you shouldn't be a part of anymore. And I think it all goes hand in hand with the fact that there are more delicate Mehndi style tattoos coming about. So usually when my clients...
So you think the introduction of more Indian
influence,
South Asian and Indian inspired tattoo styles and trends sort of like smoothed over the transition?
I think it's really helped. Yeah, I think it's really helped. And I think maybe just it being more in, everyone's vision, like eyeline. You can go outside and you'll see so many different walks of life with tattoos.
Especially for South Asian people living in, for example, the UK, Canada, America, places like that. There's way less also of the same, like, oh, this is foreign to us in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
You're confronted with it by other ethnicities and people around you. And then you also have your own, I don't know, this is again not my field of expertise, but I do know for a fact that there are archaeological findings and stuff and historical findings that show that there have been tattoo traditions in South Asian, especially Indian culture, going back thousands of years, So
yeah, exactly. It was, I know I was reading an article and I can't quote exactly what tribe it all came
Story
from.
of my life.
There was a tribe that they used to, the women would get tattooed, and only the women, and it was a show of strength, and it was to show that if they could overcome infection and overcome the pain of having the tattoos, then that was their way, basically. And that came from decades and decades and decades ago, centuries ago even, in tribes. So it stems a lot from those cultures.
It is fascinating actually, because we're finding more and more people and indigenous cultures throughout the world, even in Okinawa, Japan now. I've recently followed an account that is about indigenous Okinawan tattooing, and that's also mainly women that got it. And Inuit cultures was mainly women. There's a lot of this. Sorry, I'm digressing so much, and we will return to the other topic, but I couldn't help but think about it. It's actually often, and even today, mostly women get tattooed. All data will show you that. It's fascinating to me.
What, more women than men get tattooed?
Yeah, that's actually been the case forever, basically. It's weird. Even back when men were almost vehemently against women getting tattooed, women were still getting tattooed. And then very quickly, as they opened up towards it not being directly discriminated against, you could say, or prohibited, more women got tattooed than men. And for a long time, the statistics seem to show that more women got tattoos, but didn't get as heavily tattooed. That's also sort of been refuted nowadays, and women are overtaking men on that one as well, to be honest.
I love that. That's so interesting. But I kind of see little hints of that because my clients who are predominantly South Asian, when I speak to them about their families, family dynamics, because I find it all very fascinating as well. But they often say, oh, my mum, loves them. She's not enthralled with me getting tons, but she's the one that loves them, whereas it's more the father that
it would be weird if she was.
Yeah.
As much as I love it and my mum doesn't mind my tattoos, I have great parents, I don't think she would ever go out and be like, oh, you want to get all your body covered? Yay.
I feel like if I had a child, I would be that mum pushing them into
but we are the next generation.
True.
Plus we are both. I love tattoos so much, some tattoo artists sometimes tell me to relax. So it would be fucking weird if I said to my kid, what, you want to get a fucking Throat tattoo. Fuck off.
But yeah, it is more the dads that are like,
Yeah.
You can tell they're the ones that aren't keen on it, whereas the mums are a bit more excited about the fact that their daughter's getting another tattoo.
I mean, there's something to be talked about from feminist theorists and some feminist scholars of sociology as well, who've researched tattoos. One of my favorites is my good buddy Beverly and Thompson, where a lot of women are also get fascinated with tattoos as they are a way of reclaiming and claiming bodily autonomy.
Yeah, definitely.
And in enforcing is the wrong word. What the fuck? Why does my English keep failing me today? Enhancing that sense of bodily autonomy, for example, but also more often not, mainly based on research on Western women, but I would infer that it will just as well count for other cultural groupings of women as well. It's also a way of pushing back against patriarchal beauty standards and norms of bodily autonomy and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I think that there's like a big... I don't know, it's always been a thing, hasn't it? The woman should be like feminine and stuff like that. And it's a lot of the times women are...
That I also have a gripe with, because feminine subjectively defined, so that's... yeah.
Exactly. But this is it. This is why I think a lot of women do go out and get tattoos, because they're like, I'm still feminine just because I've decided to get a bit of artwork on my body. That doesn't make me not feminine anymore.
Well, for a lot of women, in their own perception of themselves, and also for men like me, it could make them even more feminine.
Yeah, exactly.
Or at least in the sense that it makes them more authentically themselves, which is what feminine or masculine should be about.
Yeah.
It makes them more.
Yeah. It's all self-expression at the end of the day, isn't it? But
true. I mean, which is fascinating, because there are people that would argue that in less Western tattoo culture traditions, so that's why I kind of hooked onto what you said just now, there's less of the whole self-expression and more cultural expression. But I've always thought that, well, even expressing a cultural belonging can be important to the individual too. Yeah. So that's still, in a way, self-expression.
Definitely. I mean, a lot of my clients, they, maybe say the clients more in their 40s and 50s and stuff like that. Some of them don't want to get loads of tattoos, but the ones that they do get are Mehndi style. I do tributes to their wedding Mehndi. I'll take their wedding Mehndi, pull out certain shapes and create...
I would argue that's cooler than the wedding ring tattoo.
Yeah, I will agree with you there. Definitely more unique. But, they won't have many, but the ones they do have will show off their culture, and it will show off their, a time in their life that was really significant for them. And it's just such a beautiful way of doing it.
Well, absolutely, but in what you said there as well, it also in a way shows what they feel is their connection to that culture.
Yes.
Which is where the self-expression part comes in to some extent again, even though it's very much, to some extent, socially motivated. It's also very personally motivated to them, because they want to embody this cultural connection.
Exactly.
And background.
Yeah, exactly that. But I just think the increasing popularity of all of the Mehndi and South Asian culture stuff can do nothing but good, which is why I'm happy to tattoo it even on people that aren't South Asian. Yeah,
I was about to ask that, because I have seen on your Instagram that there are some clients that are not as pale as me, but that's difficult to achieve. But, close.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to tattoo it on anyone as long as they're, they appreciate the culture. They can kind of...
I was about to say, because that's very much from a sociological standpoint, I would argue. Very much based on a book I wrote from a philosopher, I think she would call herself, but she might actually be a sociologist from France called Marie Forest, who wrote a thing called Generation Offended. Basically, would translate to... I don't know what the English title actually is, so don't look it up with that. Okay. I don't know, actually. But that's what the Danish title would translate to. But she basically explained it too, that the difference between cultural appropriation and appreciation is whether you actually care to engage with where this is from.
Yeah, exactly.
And appreciate that.
Yeah.
Which is why a girl wearing dreadlocks, for example, as one of the examples you put out with a French model that did that, the reason it was cultural appropriation in that model's case is because she didn't care to acknowledge where it was from, nor did she acknowledge that it belongs to that culture in a sense as well. And she was also like, oh, it looks better on me, which is also, that's again where you get into the cultural appropriation territory, because you're sort of colonizing that embodiment in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas appreciation is much more like you're saying, you're there, you're South Asian yourself, you're probably also educating your clients a bit through the conversation you have with them. That's a different thing.
Definitely. I think as well it's, there's a responsibility for people who aren't from that culture that want to embrace certain aspects of that culture. There is a responsibility for them to understand where it's come from, and maybe even also understand the struggles of the people from that culture who have tried to embrace those things, and what they would have faced. So I can only really speak for myself, but I'm sure it will apply to every single culture, like minority culture, like the dreadlocks and stuff like that. But for me, when I used to go into school sometimes with Mehndi, there would be a set group of girls that just would, single me out for it. And it wouldn't just be sort of seen as the beautiful artwork, which it is. It was, you're different. You are different to the norm, and that's not okay. You don't fit in. So I think it made it for a long time, and it's very, very common, I know, in South Asian culture. There's like a term of whitewashing. Like, I tried to whitewash myself. I tried to scrub away my culture. I wouldn't tell friends, or I wouldn't make it known that I had been to like an Indian event at the weekend, or I had watched a Bollywood movie, because I would do everything I could to not single myself out from everybody.
The irony of how those girls would probably now ask you for Bollywood recommendation.
Or want a Mehndi tattoo, or even just have tidbits of the culture, and there's no understanding and no recollection of how they made someone from that culture feel.
But I think it's beautiful how you seem to, at least as I'm sort of interpreting between the lines here, appreciates a lot of the progress that's sort of happened for people to switch from, oh, you are different with these Mehndi on your hand, fuck you, to now being like, oh, this is actually quite cool, this culture. Let's get Mehndi ourselves and stuff like that when we go to an Indian wedding and that stuff. Which, again, not to tout an offer too much, but same example Marie Forrest used in her book, where she talked with, I think she's herself of some different ethnicity. That she's not French white as far as I know, but she talked about how that one should recognize that there's a lot of difference that happened from black women being forced to having white hair and being hated for their own natural hair. So now some white women want black hair and appreciates that, and don't discriminate against them having their own hair anymore, or them having white hair, which is still a level of progress, as long as it's done with this appreciation of where it come from and the struggle that led to it. Because if they come in and want to Mehndi tattoo those girls, let's say that those girls that bullied you for it, and they don't appreciate the struggle or apologize or anything like that, then they shouldn't get one. They shouldn't get one, because that would be appropriation.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they were to come in and they actually did the homework, get the struggle, understand why that was rough for you and all that stuff, then there's a different level. There's some progress made there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, of course, it's simplified in this terms. There would be a whole treatise if I wanted to go into every detail. But I hope you see my point here.
No, definitely. There is progress.
It's beautiful to recognize this progress.
Progress is important for us to all move on, right? Otherwise, we'd all still be stuck in the times of complete racism, complete segregation. So progress is welcomed, and it's celebrated, and there should be more of it. And
absolutely.
Every time,
which is why I love cultural appreciation, like the one you're talking about, where it's, oh, let's share this with the people that actually care to learn about it, and let them have it too. It's the same thing, ironically, to sort of turn it on its head, when I talked to a Nordic tattoo artist in the north of UK, who's actually from Denmark too, but he lives in Whitley Bay up there, long time ago by now. But he talked about why he would happily do Nordic tattoos on people with brown skin or black people or anything like that, because it's not about, he doesn't want to keep it closed in. Anybody that loves and appreciate that our cultural heritage can get it, because that's what it's about. Whereas he had more problems, which I applaud him for, with Nazis appropriating Nordic mythology and getting Viking tattoos than he would ever have with anybody from Asia or South Asia or Africa getting Viking tattoos because they appreciate it and they're not trying to use it for hate. It would be the same. It's the same with how people need to understand, for example, when some people from certain religions would get something that looks like a swastika done, when it's not. The Nazis appropriated that.
Yeah, exactly. Because
of course, there's a different history tied to it now, but that's an important example.
Yeah,
they turned that into hate.
There is a shape in Indian culture that is the swastika just turned, but it was in Hinduism long before the Nazis took it over. But now, sadly, it's got that bad connotation.
Yeah, and it's a great example where I would think twice about, for example, getting heavily Nordic tattooed. It's not my style, but let's say it was. I would still think twice about it because it has been so tied into that nowadays, you know. And I would hate if that ever happens, for example, to your culture or anything else, where we're just like, oh yeah, that type of tattooing, oh, that means you hate this group of people and sort of. It's sad to see cultures be hijacked like that.
It is sad, and I would like to think that we're past those times now. I
hope so. I mean, we're not fully, but most people, I would argue.
Yeah, not fully.
There's some real cunts out there, to say the least.
You're not wrong.
I mean, you don't need a degree in sociology to know that, but it helps.
For sure.
But it's interesting to see the parallel there. I didn't mean to digress into or talk my culture or anything like that. But it's fascinating to talk about because it's interesting. I very much am always a fan of people, no matter what the cultural background is, that say, hey, if you appreciate it, of course you're welcome to participate.
Yeah. Well, due to that reason, actually, I have a website and I'm currently working on building a page that educates people about Mehndi and its roots and what it symbolises and why sort of it's translated from Mehndi to now tattoos. So hopefully that will be live soon. But
I mean, that sounds like a beautiful thing to do, so I hope so.
Yeah, I'm hoping it will, but I will be definitely directing as many people towards reading that as possible because, you know, it just gives a base understanding as to
it's
what
the same
it
thing,
is,
like,
why you're getting it on your body, you know?
Exactly, and I think that's important. Like, it's the same. I follow a few. I hope to get one of them on at one point, but I follow some Maori artists. And most of the ones I follow from New Zealand, who are themselves Maori descent, talk about how they don't mind tattooing Westerners, white people with Maori designs, as long as they appreciate the history and understand certain rules and limitations. For example, they can't get the face muku. That's sacred. And I think that's the important thing because people can appreciate that stuff.
Yeah.
It stays within appreciation and doesn't become appropriation.
Yeah, definitely. And as long as it's like you say, there's a respect there, and there will be a level of hardship that the true Maori people have had to have faced.
Well, same with your people, to say the least.
Every culture, I guess, right?
I would argue my part of the world has not faced too much.
Do you not think?
If you go before 1939, not much. To be honest.
Well, most cultures then, I guess.
Yeah, I just want to be fair here because I'm a bit tired of how people gold keep for white people sometimes. I mean, it's pretty horrendous what we've done. Of course, everybody in the world can face hardships at times, and every culture can, but not to the same extent we've enforced on other people and that.
Yeah, I know the British sort of takeover was rough of a lot of countries. So.
Yep. But I mean, even the guy I interviewed about Viking tattooing said this himself. Vikings aren't a thing to be proud of in that sense because that was a certain profession and they went around destroying the world basically. We raided an area of the world larger than almost the Roman Empire was. That it's an insane reach we had, and it wasn't anything good.
Yeah, you know? I mean, there's two sides to every coin, right? Because some people would see that conquering as like so impressive that's obviously what they're honouring with that, but then they're not seeing the other flip side of the coin with all the violence and all the cultures.
I mean, rarely does anybody think of Vikings, the other cool stuff I would rather be proud of in my heritage of like the cool art they made or the innovative ways they got iron from the soil in Norway or the farming innovations they had and all that sort of stuff. We're more known for the well, to be blunt, raping and pillaging.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's because I've not watched any of the TV shows?
I don't either.
Okay.
I tried to watch the first episode, then they claimed there was mountains in Denmark, and I switched off.
All wrong.
Yeah, well, tallest point is 110 meters.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, so there's really no mountains.
We only have 2 points that are that high.
Mhm.
So, naturally in Denmark. So, to say there's mountains in that area where the main guy is from is fucking ludicrous. It's clearly a production team thinking, and I get it to some extent, thinking, oh, it's way more impressive to show mountains in a fjord in Norway than a flat sort of marsh area in Denmark.
Well, it's good to know the truth if I ever decide to watch it.
I mean, it's flat here. There's a reason we like bicycles so much. It's fucking flat. But I guess that. I mean, I think the same thing can be said with the Bollywood thing. If actually there's a similar effect here, because the Viking show caused so many people to suddenly want Nordic tattoos, no matter what cultural background they have themselves, which I have no problem with at all. They often make cool tattoos, whether they're actually accurately Nordic or not. But it's the same effect here with the fascination. I think the fascination with Bollywood sort of came first, and then people were like, oh shit, what else is South Asian? And then they sort of got fascinated with the tattoo stuff as well as it came out, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't ever, or it's very rare to come across anybody that has watched like a Bollywood film that's not South Asian. So I feel like that hasn't fully stemmed into UK culture yet or anything.
No.
That's very much kept in just South Asian culture. But I know that like the few people that I have met that have watched Bollywood films are generally from like, there was one guy from Turkey and, you know, other European cultures sort of thing. Not maybe non-white cultures as well. So I feel like like in Bollywood you don't see people, or actually it's quite funny, the people you do see with tattoos are the bad guys that come in.
So that's still sort of that way of using tattoos in media language in Bollywood.
And I think
but it's still present in Hollywood and stuff like that as well. Not as present as heroes can have tattoos as well nowadays, you know.
Exactly. Like in Bollywood, it's always the bad guy, rides a motorbike, has tattoos, and
so you are the bad guy in Bollywood movies.
Essentially, I was like,
for anybody who doesn't know Nikki yet, there's 2 things you'll learn from her page. She does South Asian tattooing, and she loves motorcycles.
Yeah. I saw the bad guy and I was like, that's me.
Yes!
I aspire to be that guy.
Now I just need a weird dance number and a nice little trendy tune, and we're fucking rolling.
Exactly. But this is why I think there was such a big gap between our ancestors had so many tattoos versus... You know, there was this huge gap of like tattoos are terrible, and now they're sort of coming back to being accepted again.
But I think that's beautiful. I mean, you see the more and more cultures around the world, and indigenous peoples especially around the world, Inuits, North American indigenous people, Asian, South Asian, East Asian, and I think that's awesome because it's sort of been lost and driven underground by many years of colonization and the aftermath following it. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I think it is great. We're in a time where it's all like the cloud is lifting, I guess, and people are able to be themselves without fear of judgment, you know, and workplaces are becoming more accepting of tattoos. And
well, at least the UK is very much a place where that seems to be going on.
I say it with all my clients. It's actually more rare to see someone with no tattoos now than it is to see them with.
I have to be the skeptical, annoying sociologist now and say that's just not true. But
Really?
I get the impression. It's because you live in London, where the statistic quickly gets skewed to a different side. But when you take the entire UK, even the UK population, a third of people have a tattoo.
Interesting.
And the number gets smaller and smaller the more tattoos people have. Like so a lot of people might have 1, 2, or 3, like at most a handful of tattoos, often that they can hide. But yeah, But I will say this though: Britain is way higher in that statistic than many other countries are around our part of the world. Even Denmark, even though I've seen tattoos ever since I was a kid. Not on my parents; they don't have any, but just around the landscape.
Yeah.
Denmark has like 5 or 6% point less tattoo population than Britain would have, and yet you still have people that go around here saying everybody has a tattoo now. But it's because of these. It's a lack of critical reading of the impressions we get when we walk around. Sometimes it's not something people can help. It's just how it is. You see what you see, and then you sort of stitch together your impression of the world around you.
Is it that it's like because I have an interest in tattoos, I'm more likely to point out? No,
that's it's not so much that. It's actually more subtle than even that. I would say it's more so that you might just notice it more. Well, you're interested, of course, as well, but it's also you live in London, so there might be way more people with tattoos there, and that then forms your impression because you're not going to go to Devon every day or fuck off to fucking Norwich or go out to Somerset or wherever, and see how many people are tattooed here, or go to even smaller cities like Havant down near Portsmouth or anything like that.
True.
So you don't know.
Yeah, true.
And you're not reading statistics all the time about it or doing the research. So how would you know? So your impression is based on what you experience, basically.
True. Yeah.
And thus you form an idea of like, oh man, everybody fucking has tattoos now. It's just not the case.
Well, that's interesting to know.
Way more people than used to have tattoos tattoos now. Absolutely. And the number, despite people tattoo regret rising, the number still also goes up on the other side. So
there's a rise in tattoo regret. That's concerning.
Yeah, but I could get into a whole explanation of that, to be honest. But that has to do with that there'll always be a rise when then more people get tattoos. Of course, there's a natural progression that there will also be more people regretting it because there's just more people with tattoos. But it's also because as many people that think more reflexively about tattoos, there's also, as we talked about earlier, way more people that don't think reflexively about their tattoos or go out because they just want a quick one and get a shit one done at a low price by somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing, and then they regret it as well, and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
So this is all these factors play in, and then regret, which people that work in dermatology need to fucking learn how to do statistics probably, because they're just like, no, everybody's going to regret the tattoos, don't get them. And it's like, no, not the case. Most people that get a tattoo don't regret it.
I guess as well, like, it makes more sense. The more people that are getting tattooed, then there's a more likelihood that some are going to regret it.
I actually just wrote an article for Insta about this. Another important distinction I want people to learn is also there's a world of difference between regretting a tattoo and regretting being tattooed.
Yeah.
I've known plenty of people that are covered head to toe that do not regret for a day being tattooed, but they may regret the odd tattoo.
Yeah, I would say I fall into that category for sure.
Exactly,
Yeah.
You still identify with, I love being tattooed and want to be tattooed and want to get more tattoos, but that one might be bad, or this one might not be like I wanted, or I want something else here,
Yeah, maybe you sort of realise, like, once that bit of skin is gone with a tattoo, that's it. You get one shot at it. And, I now, after years of being in the industry, I look at certain tattoos and I think, well, that could have been done a bit better. And I find
I think that's also why artists often tend to regret some of the earlier tattoos, because you start to have a new appreciation of the real estate sort of around the body of what could have been placed there and how the space could have been used better, or this could have left more room for this sleeve or this.
Yeah, for sure. I think the deeper you go into having more and more tattoos, then the more you realise how precious that space is.
That's the other thing. Like, I'm the odd one out. I've never regretted this tattoo, even some of the shittier ones when I was earlier. But I've also always been, to an almost autistic level, reflexive about my choices in life in that way, and highly analytical about whatever I fucking do, which is a problem, to be honest. So of course I haven't regretted them. But for most people, as you point out, as they get more of an appreciation for it, as they learn more of the culture, they perhaps start going to conventions, and they read magazines, and they see what's out there, and they learn what they like more, and become more aware of the styles they're interested in, and what styles are out there. Of course, they might regret some of the early ones that they just got.
Yeah.
Even if they were personal at the time. And that's another thing. Personal connections too, if they're not thought through correctly, if they're too rigid, as a research paper I read recently explained very correctly, if you ask me, they can't evolve with you, because you change as a person as you go through life. So even a tattoo that's very personal to you, which would normally be like, hey, personal means tattoo, you're not going to regret that. You can, because
Yeah.
you evolve as a person. So if the meaning is too rigid or the narrative tied to it, you regret it because it's not going to change with you.
Yeah. But then you could look at it in the other way and say, well, that was me all those years ago.
But that's already you, the meaning not being too rigid. And that's it all comes
I
from the
see.
person. It's not the tattoo. The tattoo's not going to change.
Yeah.
But if you're able to evolve your perspective on the tattoo in that way,
Yeah.
and that means the meaning is not too rigid, and you're likely not going to regret it. Then.
Yeah.
That's the best piece of advice I can give people ever on tattoo regret. That not too rigid, not completely devoid of meaning either.
Just be
Somewhere
fluid.
within that spectrum.
Yeah.
but I am curious as well with the Mehndi style tattoos. Because again, I'm ignorant to this. I know I would be able to recognize the look of one, but I don't know the sign rules, so to speak, or the language. The sign language is probably a better way of explaining it. So, are there very rigid rules with what Mehndi can be, or is it more open to interpretation in a way?
I think it's, I don't know, I would say a little bit of both. So
Okay.
I guess there are some rules. So in Mehndi, I would say to distinguish what is a Mehndi style piece, you would have certain shapes. So the paisley shapes, you would have a lot of flowers in there, a lot of leaf shapes. But the flowers that you would get would be like small, ornamental, decorative flowers, rather than something that looked a bit more like a traditional, realistic flower. Because you have other ornamental, like I feel like ornamental is such a broad term
Absolutely.
of just
Broad
pattern
category.
work, tattoos. And then it also splits off into mandalas, which is the circular, repeating, layered shapes. So, yeah, I feel like in order for something to be distinguished as Mehndi, it would be more on the delicate side, more intricate. So another branch of ornamental tattooing is very, very bold, and I would say that takes a lot of cultural like aspects from like Tibetan culture and stuff like that. If you look at Tibetan art, their flowers would be very bold and simplified shapes almost, compared to the intricacies of like a flower in a piece of Mehndi. So I feel like there's definitely certain shapes that if you pinpointed those out within a piece, you could say, well, that's more Mehndi influence rather than ornamental. Peacocks are another really popular shape, but less common, I would say. But peacocks are obviously very big in India and Indian culture, so we like to put those in there. I'd say that's it really, that you get main little building blocks and then all the little dots as well, the little like lines of dots and the little configurations of small dots and stuff. That is through and through always in Mehndi pieces, little tiny dots everywhere. I'm sure it is in a lot of other cultures and their
I would expect there to be some, cultural bleed, as they call it, into different styles and other design cultures around that area. Because India covers a massive part of the world and a massive population, and lots of different cultural heritage in all the different states in India as well. So I wouldn't say, I would say it's very easy to make that very well qualified guess that would very much be prevalent in other tattoo cultures as well from the same part of the world.
I think going back, because when my mum did her Mehndi training, she sort of told me all the little bit of tidbits of information that she got. And it was that you have like building blocks, certain shapes of the building blocks, and then you've got the little filler shapes that fill out like fans and dots and stuff like that. So I think, it's just, that's how I've got my information. And I think that's how I've eventually learned to build my Mehndi style, my own style, is using literally her Mehndi training, which is, I feel like I'm in a really unique position to be able to do that.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I've looked through some of your artwork. Even, I mean, of course, done it before today as well, but I also did it, prep for this. And you're really good at mixing the Mehndi also with other cultural influences. Like I've seen the babushka dolls you did. I've seen the deer you did and stuff like that. Which is kind of cool because that's why I asked the question initially as well, because I always love cultural mixing, as you can tell from our whole conversation today. But that was so fascinating because it still very much to me would read as Mehndi because there's all these stylistic elements in it from that.
Yeah, I feel like the way that I try and word it is you've got Mehndi influence and then you've got
Yeah,
Mehndi.
right.
So so some of the designs I've done, which is I call like a chain design, which is just the free flow Mehndi,
Yeah, yeah,
following the
yeah.
body sort of thing. That is just Mehndi through and through. You could go to a Mehndi artist and they would, with a Mehndi cone, do something very
Yeah,
similar. Whereas the Mehndi influence, which would be like adding the Mehndi shapes into a bit more of like a structured, symmetrical, ornamental design, or the babushka doll, or I've even got a client where we're going to do like a Mexican Day of the Dead-esque skull,
oh,
but with Mehndi patterns instead.
damn! I honestly, I look forward to seeing that. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
that's
looking
gonna
forward to
work very
doing it.
well.
Yeah, so I feel like there's Mehndi influence and then there's
Yeah,
Mehndi,
yeah. No, it
But I
makes
think
a total sense.
it's a nice blend, I think, and it helps other. I like the cultural blend as well. Actually, a cultural blend I really want to do is Mehndi with Japanese because I love
Mm.
the Japanese food dogs. I think they're stunning and
Oh,
they're
right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And if I could redo my whole body, I think I'd just get a Japanese bodysuit. I think it's an incredible
Do
style.
you be careful with the food dogs because there are two different types, and one's from the original one from China, and this Japanese one they sort of appropriated from China.
I see. Okay. See, I need to do some research into this
oh,
myself.
I'm such a nerd with Japan. It's bad.
It's such a fascinating culture.
But I mean, even that I could be wrong. The guy I know that I personally know that knows the most about this, and you can probably find people that are even more experts in that, and you could probably point you to them. Is the historian Matt Lotter because he's done a lot of work with Japanese people and a lot of work on Japanese tattoo culture as well, in conjunction with his own personal research into Western tattooing and so that.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's such a fascinating culture. I'm not surprised when
absolutely,
people, dedicate themselves to it. But
absolutely.
I think there's a space for a really interesting blend of Japanese and Indian
But
cultures because
a lot of it's blends already. At least as far as I've learned, once some of the more modern Irasumi Japanese tattoo style also had a lot of inspiration from certain things from Chinese culture. And for example, some of the big Irasumi designs are all based in the Suikoden, the watershed, which is basically a Chinese fantasy
oh,
novel
okay.
from that back then, translated to Japanese, or at least might have been a Japanese author, but it was based on these Chinese myths and heroes and all that stuff and folklore. And all these characters that also later was given tattoos and some of the drawings and stuff like that. yeah, yeah,
That's interesting. I'll have to look
very
into
much. And I'm probably butchering half the details there because I'm very bad at remembering stuff at times. I do know that a lot of people assume tattooing is based on the watershed, and the watershed is based in Chinese myth. I
that.
can't remember if the author was Chinese, Japanese, but it's ancient Chinese culture is basically based in these
Mm-hmm.
many mythical characters that
I
then
feel like
became
I've heard of the
inspiration for
watershed.
ukiyo paintings in Japan, and then ukiyo paintings became the inspiration for a lot of tattooing in Japan. And yeah,
Mm. That's so. Yeah, I feel like I've definitely heard of the watershed, so I'm gonna look into that some more.
now read it, played so many video games and seen series and stuff like that based on it. Never read the original, which is probably bad of me. But yeah,
Well, that'll be the next thing for you to do then.
uh, maybe at some point. But no, it's fascinating stuff. That sort of thing. I would say, is there mythology as well to some extent tied into your tattoos? Is it a bit more like just the sign language of ancient Indian culture and stuff like that?
I mean, there's definitely like an aspect of mythology because with the Hindu religion, which I am not religious, so I can only speak of it from what my grandparents have taught me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, with the Hindu religion, there is a lot. I suppose like the Hindu gods, there's a huge broad spectrum of all the different imagery and the different gods that we have and stuff. And obviously, some people do just get tattooed of the Hindu gods and stuff like that.
Yeah. We all have seen plenty of
Yeah.
Kali tattoos and stuff.
Yeah, which they are gorgeous and in their own merit. But I feel like, that mythology doesn't quite stem into the Mehndi ornamental side of it. I feel like the Mehndi side is more just decorative and
but it does very much hark back to some of the ancient ruins you see from India and that part of the world. So there is a shared design language to some extent, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't seen the sort of old ruins and stuff like that. I'm not very clued up, if I'm honest, about like old ancient India. My India take is a lot more modern, but I think that's coming from like more of a Western.
That's also interesting in and of itself, because I think a lot of people often want to find their own basis in an identity. In that way as well.
Yeah, I think my family grew up in Kenya rather than India.
Oh wow!
So I think a lot of the Indian side of things was not lost, but just lost in translation, maybe from the move from India to Kenya and then Kenya to the UK.
Ah, right. Well, that is quite a way of, probably by trade, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would love to go back and get in touch with the roots. So my family's from North India, predominantly. Well, yeah, before they were in Kenya, we all stem back to North India. So going back there and getting back in touch with my roots is definitely something I would like to do at some point.
But, I mean, that's a very beautiful aspiration.
I've heard the tattoo scene in India is massive now. So
it is growing quite a bit. I mean, but again, by no means an expert, but I've seen plenty of people talk about how that it's growing and growing, and there's a lot of new stuff popping up, and there's loads of professional artists also nowadays in studios that are just as modern as what you find over here.
Yeah.
Whereas I think people mainly hear about how there's a lot of, people just sit in the street tattooing people fucking without any hygiene or anything, which also still happens a lot, I would imagine, in India. But there are more and more modern studios too, from what I hear.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot in the south of India that's more modern. I think North India, sadly, is still a bit stuck in the ways. I had a client and her mum got tattooed in India or something, and it was just in someone's house, sort of thing. So, it's not quite moved with the times.
I mean, I don't want to be prejudiced, but that's sadly what I fear whenever I hear people say, "Oh, I just got a quick tattoo in India." Whenever people just say a quick tattoo and it's in some holiday in anywhere in the Asian continent, I always think like,
my fear as
it's definitely not going to be good. If you say you got a quick tattoo, it's not going to be good. If you say you got a tattoo, it might actually be,
Yeah, but it's just positive to know that there is a scene out in India. I think
they actually have tattoo conventions now as well. I'm pretty sure I've seen them talking about some in Mumbai and Dubai. No, not Dubai. Mumbai and
Delhi.
Delhi, yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought Dubai. It's just rhymed with the other. Not at all. Sorry, that was me being horrendous there. I fully know Dubai is nowhere near India.
No, but the culture is somewhat similar, isn't it? Because they follow like a Muslim culture and stuff, and Muslim culture does have Mehndi as well. Actually, I went to Dubai. And I was really not scared, but I was dubious, and I thought I would get, nasty looks, and I thought I just wouldn't be very accepted. I got so many compliments, mainly by the women, of my tattoos, and nobody looked at me in any untoward way. It's one of the
even the Middle East has quite an ancient tattoo history and culture. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think because maybe they see it as a Mehndi style, they can relate.
I mean, I would suspect that could very much be why. I can't speak for what the actual reason is, but I mean, I would very much imagine you could be very correct there, because there most definitely must be some similarities. At least I know there's some of the same, from what I've seen for some ancient Middle Eastern indigenous tattoo culture pictures of that. There's a lot of the same, like very filigree, like designs on hands and lower arms and stuff like that. So that is quite similar.
Yeah. I was really pleasantly surprised. I've actually been to countries that are more like European and white, I suppose, where I faced more negativity towards the tattoos. And I
sadly would have suspected as much.
It is sad that the UK is meant to be so diverse, and British people claim to be very diverse, but then you go to some holiday places where it is predominantly, you know, not multicultural, and you get a lot of negativity towards tattoos and stuff.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say to that, because it's just, I mean, there's nothing to add to it. It's just very much true that there is a lot of that. And I think, especially anybody who's non-white and a woman at the same time face a fuckload of discrimination. Basically, if you're not a cis white man, you're always more prone to facing. You're almost more prone to facing some prejudice, discrimination, and stigma. But I've just noticed that brown women, especially, and black women that get tattooed often face 10 times more of the similar stigma other women that are tattooed face. Whereas there's all these claims of promiscuity and all that stuff, and but not wanting to be a woman, not being correct, not being pure. But you get it even more so, from what I can tell, than even a white woman would. They already get it plenty. So it's baffling to think about the level of shit women with tattoos have to face, especially if they're not white too.
Like a double whammy.
Yeah, that's a nicer way of putting it out. I mean, yeah, multi-stigmatized is often how we may describe it within sociology, but that is sort of, as much as we can also talk about intersectionality of identities, which is incredible and something that's much more talked about nowadays in social sciences. Incredible piece of theoretical concept by Kimberly Crenshaw. Sadly, it also shows how people can be discriminated for multiple things at the same time as well, which is horrible.
Yeah.
But there's sadly nothing in the brain of people's moral compass to say, hey, we're already hating them for this thing, let's just leave it at that. No, we can hate them for multiple things, of course.
The more the better.
I wish there was a stop kind of block in people's head, like, no, we already hate Mass for having red hair, let's not hate him for the tattoos as well. Just use myself as an example. But people don't do that. They don't go, oh, let me stop here. We've plenty to go by. Yeah,
no, there's no stop button in human heads.
If only the same thing worked for compliments sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, it very much seems to be no, I've already complimented one thing. Too much would make me seem psychotic. Especially in England. I would say that's one thing I learned very much living in England in my youth. English people will give one compliment and then you're done. That's their quota for the day. And if they give you more than one compliment, they might go home and cry afterwards.
One compliment, one being nice. That's enough.
Yeah. They'll pick one thing and they're like, I like your... Oh, no.
Never mind.
Yeah, that's actually a very English reaction. It's like, oh, I better say something nice. I like that you were on time.
The British culture is very
funny. I just want to say, I've known plenty of British people that absolutely love and adore, but there are some things about the culture that's just absolutely hilarious to me, and that's one of them. It's like, I can't find a good thing to say, but I had to say something nice. You're on time. You're tiny.
My favourite is the over-apologising.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But I can't say that because I do that too, but that's because I'm fucked in the head. That's not a cultural thing.
Okay. It's not just a British thing.
No, that's not a British thing. Danish people very much are not... we hate the over-politeness of that. I do too, but I just do it. I'm just also guilty of it at times because I'm fucked in there.
Well, I'd rather be over-polite than not polite,
True. I get... That's very... I mean... Nobody can come and say you're not British if that's your standpoint.
Exactly.
That's probably on the citizenship test, to be honest.
How polite are you?
Would you rather be overly polite or B, not polite at all?
Yeah.
And anybody says B, you're not allowed in. Oh man. Well, I've kept you for a long time now.
So it's been a good conversation.
Absolutely. But to wind us down here, because we have been on some deep topics. I mean, we've had a laugh along the way, but we have talked about some pretty intense stuff as well, and some very important stuff. Sure. So I wanted to I always want to wind down at the end with a more lighthearted question. I think I might stick to what I have, even though you've now said you haven't been there. So now I even more want to ask you this. Would you ever consider, because you can, I mean, there are some people that have done this and you do like motorcycles as well. Would you ever consider taking the motorcycle on a spin around India and seeing the culture and tattooing and stuff like that if you could?
I'd honestly love to. That is such a dream. Just to go India, especially because it's my home country, but anywhere, any country, I am desperate to do like a whole motorcycle tour.
Because I mean, it's quite conveniently storable tattoo equipment nowadays.
Yeah, it's really
easily
cool.
travel with it. Even all the stuff you need for hygiene, you could easily, even on a motorcycle, have it with you.
Definitely, yeah. You can fit it all into a little rucksack, you know? So
yeah.
It's so possible. I think it's probably more limitations that I place on myself than it's like actual limitations, you know.
But it would be funny.
Oh my god, it would be.
There's this tiny Indian woman coming around on her big hog with a tattoo equipment in the back, going like, "You want a fucking tat, mate?"
I'd love it. And like, do you ride a motorcycle?
No, I can't even drive a car.
Oh, okay.
I'm a very, very much one of those nerds. I don't have any license. I have an iron horse out back, but that's what a bicycle.
Oh, I see. Well, I would recommend a motorcycle to anyone. The sense of freedom that you get and the experience that you get driving down a road or a lane on a motorcycle versus walking or a car or anything, the freedom is unmatched. So just to go anywhere, to roam around on a motorcycle, and even better to have my tattooing stuff with me, would be a dream come true. But I mean, one day, hopefully.
I mean, fingers crossed. It's definitely doable. So hopefully.
Doable. I think it's just the limitations I place on myself in my own head, and I've got.
Well, it still requires a lot of planning.
And sadly, I'm not as much of a loosey-goosey, go with the flow, like spontaneous kind of person. I'm quite structured and rigid.
Yeah, I'm not either. So I don't get the people that can just be like, you know what, I'm just going to travel next one.
Yeah, just pick up and go.
No, can't do that. There's stuff to do.
I know. I need a bit of a plan. I've got stuff to do. I need to get all my ducks in a row. But one day I'll have them all in a row, and off I will go.
Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, Nikki.
Thank you.
And I gotta say here at the end, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Please let the people know where they can learn more about what you do.
Yeah, so best place to find me is on Instagram. My handle is Nikki, spelled Nikki, nikkitattoox. I have a website. You can always keep up to date with all of my stuff there, and hopefully that henna Mehndi page will be on soon as well. And that's it. I'm always going to be predominantly based in Hertfordshire, just outside of London. But yeah, keep up with my Instagram, and that's where you'll know where I am.
Well, to anybody listening in or watching, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this awesome return to the Beyond the Gate series, one of my favorite sub-series on this podcast. And how amazing was this episode? My first South Asian tattoo artist to have on here, and always love to promote and represent diversity within the world of tattooing. And Nikki had so much interesting stuff to share, both about her own career and her cultural background and its impact and history with tattooing itself. All the interesting stuff about how Mehndi has become a certain style within tattooing and always has been, both through henna and other forms of tattoo art. And it was incredible to have her here sharing her insights and her own personal experiences with this as a Mehndi artist today in the UK. Next time, however, we're going to be shifting topic quite a bit and talking about education within the tattoo industry, so to speak, internally as well, about how indeed there are more podcasts and conferences, symposiums and stuff like that, aiming to educate tattoo artists and shop owners and all that stuff, and trying to move the industry forward as a whole in a way. Quite an interesting topic indeed. And to talk about that topic, I've of course invited along an incredible guest, one half of the Eden EDU podcast and the studio manager and part owner of the Eden tattoo studio over in Texas, together with his beautiful wife. I am so lucky to have Colton James on the podcast to talk about this topic with me. An incredible guy. I met him at Gods of Ink, and he then agreed to be on the podcast, and it was a very great time, and I look forward to you guys enjoying it in a couple of weeks' time. So stay tuned.